So yesterday we were discussing renunciation. What actually does it mean? Hello? Can I help you? If you put the phone here, I can answer it for you. So I could multitask, isn't it? Just like a Buddha. I can have so many arms and so many things going on. Yeah. So, what does renunciation really mean? Because we're looking at the situation of, if we're going to take a tantric initiation, what are the prerequisites? What would you need to have in order to feel that you were really taking the initiation? Because often Rinpoche says, what does he call it? Mickey Mouse. So a Mickey Mouse initiation. So we don't want a Mickey Mouse initiation. We really want an initiation. If we're going to attend, then we might as well get the most out of it, the most benefit out of it. So, as I was saying yesterday, 3 things that you should at least understand intellectually. Renunciation, giving up the clinging, the attachment, the grasping to the happiness of this life. Not giving up the happiness, but giving up the attachment to the happiness. So I really want you to think about what it means to be attached to happiness, attached to anything. Does it bring unhappiness? So this is what we were talking about yesterday, and we were talking about then, if you had renunciation, what would it be an antidote to? And I suggested we can think about clinging, grasping, miserliness, self-cherishing. So I didn't talk much about self-cherishing. Self-cherishing is actually quite difficult, even for people who speak English as their native language. This word cherish, we don't quite understand what it means when we're saying self-cherishing. So to self-cherish, imagine you have this baby, newborn baby, and you have to keep taking care of it. All the time you have to keep taking care of it. Are you alright? Is there anything you need? What do you want? So constantly referring to this self, which is your baby, and sort of it's demanding from you. I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. This is the me, hum mantra that we go through the day with. So to become more aware of the demands of this self-cherishing me that's saying, I want, I want, I want, I want, and I'm still not happy, I want more. So I think we're not at that extreme. Are we?
Well.
No, of course we're not. Little bit, but we're not that extreme. Maybe we can just start to reduce this intensity of the self that wants. And so what I suggested yesterday was, when you wake up in the morning, you can start with motivation. You can have a positive motivation for the day. Who remembered to do it? Well, some amazing students, you see. So, a lot of you remember to do it. It means your whole day is permeated, is touched by that motivation. This is really important for you, because we're talking about, we want something quick, you know? We're not going to wait 20 years, 30 years, 40 years before change happens. We want change to happen as quickly as possible, because any moment death can come. Probably death will not come today, but say it does, are you satisfied with your spiritual practice? And this is different from being satisfied with your material progress. There's 2 things, isn't it? One is material progress. Usually we're satisfied with that. We have our phones and our TVs and books or whatever. But on the spiritual side, are we satisfied? So then we started looking at bodhicitta, because if we're talking about developing something, developing what type of mind, then we'd be looking at bodhicitta as the type of mind that would be a really nice type of mind to have. Why? Because it's the opposite to self-cherishing, it's other-cherishing. Instead of self-cherishing, it's other-cherishing. So what this means is that it starts to remove the negative karma that you have in relation to all sentient beings. Because from beginningless time, okay, I've got to get this right. From beginningless time, you've taken rebirth, means you have countless rebirths. Okay? Beginningless, countless. You cannot count how many rebirths you've had. We can assume in each life, maybe you've hurt somebody or more. So that means the number of beings that you've hurt, that you've done negative things towards, would be countless. We can't count them. So how are you going to solve that situation? How are you going to remove all the negative harm that you've done to these countless beings from beginningless time in order to develop your mind, in order not to have this heavy baggage that you're carrying around with you? How would you do it? The answer is bodhicitta. Because when you motivate with bodhicitta, I want to liberate all sentient beings, I want to benefit all sentient beings. This is the counteraction for the times that you've done harm to sentient beings. So it's an amazing antidote that from beginningless time I've harmed. This amazing antidote is, now I want to benefit all sentient beings. If you leave out one sentient being, just one, so the neighbour, if you got divorced, husband or wife, if you got divorced and you're going to leave that person out, so I don't like that person anymore because they took the dog, or they took the child, or they took the money, or they took the house, or whatever. When there's a fight, then often the married couple may not talk after. So if you leave that one person out of your bodhicitta, then you lose your bodhicitta. It's gone. There is no bodhicitta. So this is very important for us to know, that in order to have bodhicitta, we need to motivate for all sentient beings. So yesterday I said the meaning of bodhicitta, citta means mind. So the mind that we have that goes on from life to life, and then bodhi means a compassionate mind, a loving mind, a wise mind. It means a mind that's so big, so vast, that you can incorporate all sentient beings into the motivation to want to benefit them. It's limitless. The mind is limitless in its capacity to want to benefit all sentient beings. So that's where we got up to yesterday. Why we were going through this is because of Medicine Buddha. In order to do the initiation in the best possible way, you need these three things. We haven't finished the last one. We started with renunciation, letting go of the happiness, the attachment to the happiness in this life. Bodhicitta, letting go of the self, this self-cherishing, me, renouncing it, giving it up, looking at others and seeing their importance and their value and how much you want to benefit them. That's where we got up to. So tell me, if you've got any confusion, any problems from yesterday, tell me. Gives me time to have a cup of tea. Nothing? Yes?
When does it start self-defense? Like you had yesterday you spoke about the ants. For example, you have in your house millions of ants.
Millions?
Many of ants.
Wow.
That you have to do self-defense, or you have a garden that you have to protect a vegetable against snails. Do you understand what I want to ask?
I'm completely understanding.
Thank you.
Your English is good.
Thank you.
So then we have a problem, you know, because we're trying to protect life, but then also you want to protect the vegetables, or you want to protect life, but then you don't want to live with millions of ants or hundreds of ants. Yeah. Even one mosquito, right? Even one mosquito can drive you completely crazy. You're tired, you've been at work all day, you get home, and you're thinking, I just want to have something to eat and go to bed. Enough is enough, I just want to rest. and you lie down, you put the light off, and then you hear, you can go completely crazy. So this idea of bodhicitta out the window, the idea of protecting life out the window, just one mosquito can send you into a rage. So His Holiness says, if you don't think that one person, one being can bring about a change, look what a mosquito can do to you. So even that one being, even that one ant, if it's in your bed, can send you completely crazy, right? So one thing is not to be so reactive about the situation, not to react so quickly, not to see them as the enemy, but to see that their existence where they are is not supportable. It's not appropriate for them to be living where you're living. Not that they're dirty or horrible or anything like this, but just it doesn't go together. If they're in my kitchen, it doesn't work. I used to live in Goa in South India. If you have one little, if you did this, if you left this, you would have all sorts of ants covering it within 1 minute, 2 minutes. It would be impossible. So I really learnt about ants. And we used to have ants when I was living there. We had ants that will bite you and can kill you. They're so strong. They've got these pincers that sort of grab hold of you and they bite you. So not just the small ants, you've got all sorts of ants. So then I was in the same situation. I don't want to kill the ants, but also I don't want the ants all over the food, all over the bench. You know, you don't want to have this situation because also you don't want to be killing them. So you don't want them where you are. So I discovered that one, cleanliness is very important. So His Holiness says prevention is more important than trying to solve the problem after. You know, if you weren't clean before, there's no use trying to clean up the ants after. So I found prevention was important. There's an Indian herb called haldi. Haldi is, I'll think of the Western name, but it's H-A-L-D-I. If you go to an Indian shop, they know.
It's not turmeric?
You call it kurkuma.
Is it
But
turmeric?
it's curcumin.
Yeah.
Turmeric.
Turmeric,
Turmeric.
yeah. It's kurkuma.
Yeah.
Kurkuma.
You have a few words for this, isn't it? Turmeric? What's the difference between turmeric and...
No, the English one is turmeric. In German we say kurkuma.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Also in the West they've started calling it curcumin. I think
okay.
C-U-R-C-U-M-I-N, curcumin. Turmeric.
Yeah, curcumin.
So turmeric, it's this orangey herb, and if you sprinkle it, they don't like it at all. So you find where they're coming in, and then preferably sprinkle it there. Or I used to put it around the edge of the bench, and just leave it there. The problem with it is, be very careful with your clothes. It really stains, you know. So this is the big problem. But if you've just got a kitchen and a kitchen bench and, you know, around the floor where they're coming in, if you sprinkle it, they won't come in. Vinegar and water. So if you put vinegar and water in a spray bottle and you spray the bench and then you wipe it down with vinegar and water, I think probably apple cider vinegar works better, but I used ordinary vinegar. Then also it stops them. The snails in the garden, I don't know. I've read about soapy water, that if you spray with soapy water, that it helps to keep them off. I think there's some natural remedies, organic remedies, that are good for the garden. But again, this is something that you have to research more. Saving life means you have to really engage with your world in a much bigger way. Your mind suddenly became much bigger. Before it was so easy. When you were self-cherishing, it was only about me against the ants, me against the snails, and all I had to do was kill them, and end of story, you know? So when you're trying to save life, of course it's more complicated. And then you have to start thinking what to do, how to do it. So you can pick the snails off, you can put them over the fence, for the neighbour next door, and then the neighbour can deal with it. Then the neighbour will be cursing you. Then you won't be in the neighbour's bodhicitta. Yeah. So putting them over the fence doesn't help, right? Killing them also doesn't help, because you find when you kill them, more come. It gets worse. The whole situation gets worse. So karmically, you're setting yourself up for more harm when you kill. So, people have told me, in the past they tried killing. The situation got worse. So then what to do? So, when I was doing my 3-year retreat in Dharamsala, I took a new house in a village, which I thought was going to be fine, peaceful, And while I was away doing something, and then I came back after the weekend, the landlord had done a puja. And this puja, I don't know what it was, but it had brought all these blue flies that sort of crawl around your nose and in your ears. We've got them in Australia. People can swallow them if they're talking and walking at the same time. They sort of go straight in your mouth and down your throat, and it gets stuck there, and for a long time. Not pleasant at all. My house was full of them, completely full. So I thought, well, this is really great. It's a good way to start a retreat. So I got a towel, opened all the windows, opened the doors, got a towel, and made lots of incense, and sort of shooed them out. Since that time of him doing this puja, I don't know what happened, but my wall would be completely full of these blue flies. We call them blowflies, but they're coloured blue. All over the wall on the outside. So every time I open the front door, they come in. And if you've ever experienced this, you're sitting trying to do meditation, and it's going up your nose, it's going in your ears. It's virtually impossible to meditate. So I thought, what to do? What can I do? So I wrote to this friend of mine, Ciliana, who's an Italian nun, and she said to me, she had the same problem in Nepal, that there was a wasp's nest that the wasps had made where the bathroom window opened and closed. So the bathroom window was half open, a wasp's nest was built there, so she couldn't close the window without killing the nest. And she didn't want to go to the toilet, but she had to go to the toilet. It was the only toilet. So she said every time she went to the toilet, these wasps would be coming around her head. So then she asked the Geshe, who was in Pamaya at the time, Geshe, what can I do? And he said, well, you can write a letter. She said, write a letter? He said, yes, you can write a letter to the wasps and say, very nice having you as a visitor, but now I'm afraid you're going to have to go because it's inconvenient having you. So she thought, well, this is really weird. Tibetan lamas, totally weird, How's that going to work? But, she said to Geshe, but if that doesn't work, what else would you do? And he said, Tonglen. So maybe many of you know Tonglen, where you breathe in the suffering of the being and then you give back happiness. So this was the standby. She wrote the letter, dear wasps. It's been very nice having you as a visitor, blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry you have to leave home because you built this very nice home. Sorry you have to go, but really it's very inconvenient having you here. She stuck it on the wall near the wasp's nest. The next day, they'd all gone. It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I thought, well, strange. Okay, I'll write the letter. So I wrote the letter. It didn't work for me very well. Maybe I wasn't fully into it. But anyway, it didn't work very well. So I thought, well, I'll do the Tonglen, because I like Tonglen. And then I thought of all the suffering of these blue flies. All they want is happiness, isn't it? They want food, they don't want danger, they don't want fear, they want food, they don't want anxiety. So I'm sort of really getting into this as a meditation, on their happiness rather than my happiness. But also I have to do something about this situation because I can't meditate with them going in here and going up here or around here. This is impossible. So, give me all your suffering, your anxiety, your fear, your problems, blah, blah, blah. Give it all to me, and I give you back my happiness. So I did this on the cushion in my room. When I went out at lunchtime and looked at the wall, virtually all the blowflies had gone. And it would last for about 2 weeks. And then gradually they would come back. And then I'd do Tonglen again, and then again they would disappear. So I don't know how this works, but I think definitely it changes your mind. That you start to see how they want to be happy, how they don't want to suffer. You know? And this is part of your bodhicitta. How you're going to develop bodhicitta. Because if you're thinking, oh, the ants, you know, they're such a nuisance, well, then it's difficult to develop bodhicitta. The flies, oh, you know, it's horrible. How can I develop bodhicitta? So actually we need to have a very open feeling towards the happiness of all beings, but also we don't want to have a very uncomfortable situation with them, which is what you're describing. So, how to manage? There's no perfection. Yesterday I said, all of Buddhist teachings come down to 2 sentences. The actual literal translation is, do no harm. I don't say this. I don't say do no harm, because it's virtually impossible to do no harm. Do the least harm. So you think of the least harm that you can do to the ants, to the cockroaches, to the slugs, to the snails, whatever it is, do the least harm. But realize that we're in samsara, you know, this wheel of birth, death, rebirth, caused by karma and delusion. So because we're trapped here in this situation, we need to have this feeling, I want to get out. And I'm not going to get out of this suffering situation if I keep harming others. And so the situation you're talking about is perfect for developing bodhicitta. Because in the past, maybe you wouldn't even consider liberating them from their suffering. But now you start to think, I'm going to liberate them from their suffering. Not by killing them, but by doing something for them. I was in Spain recently talking about ants. And it was a little house, and the step was very low, and so ants were coming from the garden. As soon as the rain stopped, these big ants started coming, and they were heading towards my room. Not the room opposite, but only my room. I think because I had gluten-free cake. They're discerning. They're good ants, you know. They know quality when they see it. So I had some gluten-free biscuits in my room, and I thought, oh, here we go. The ants are all heading towards me. So I took one of these sort of things, and I broke it in half, and I put it outside at the beginning of the pathway. They stopped coming. So it's also said that in the past you've harmed them, not necessarily as ants, but you've harmed them, and now they're coming to get something back from you. And so when you offer something, it stops the harm. I was just in Helsinki. Do you think of Helsinki as an ant paradise? I don't. But the lady where I was staying, she wrote to me one day, maybe last summer or the summer before, she wrote to me and she said, I'm being invaded by ants. She's got this really nice apartment, sealed windows, all the rest of it. Somehow the ants were coming in, and they were going up the fridge and into the fridge. They were really shopping, you know. So she said, they're everywhere, and I don't know what to do about it. And I said, well, you know, there's the letter, there's Tom Len, but also it's said that karmically you have to give something back to them. And she said, oh, I get this. You know, this is something that worked for her. Not the letter, not Tom Len, but giving something back, yes, I get it. So she went to the best store in Helsinki, the most expensive cake shop that there is, and she bought a whole cake, a really expensive cake. I don't know how much she paid, but I don't know, 80 euro, 100 euro, something like this. Very expensive cake. And then she put it outside, where the ants were coming in, right? So they were going up the wall, and then through the window somehow. She put it outside. So her neighbour opposite, whose front door is opposite, they kept looking at this cake. But why? She said they never actually asked, but they kept looking. You know, she could see them from the kitchen window. They'd come out their house and they'd look at the cake. That looks like a really expensive cake, but why? And, you know, she was making up all these stories in her head. What would you say? Well, because the ants are invading my house, I decided to go to the best shop in Helsinki and buy them a really expensive cake and put it outside. Next minute, you're in a jacket, being taken away, you know. So she did this, she put it outside. Next day, they're gone. But she said the interesting thing was, she never saw one ant eat the cake. She put it exactly where the ants were walking, but they never touched the cake. They went around the cake, but they didn't touch it. This is really weird, because it's sugar, it's delicious cake. So she said the next day she went to look, not one ant on the cake, and she never saw them touch the cake, and yet they came out of the fridge and they left. So it seems karmically it changed the situation. So if you can see yourself as karmically caught up with them, you can do medicine Buddha practice for them, you can wish them to be well, you can wish them to be happy, but the worst thing is to wish them harm. Because then you're connecting with them again in a harmful way, and then inevitably more ants, more termites, more cockroaches, whatever it is. It doesn't solve the problem. Yeah? I had termites in the house in Goa. You know, termites it's a big thing in Goa. That they just eat through your books, they eat through the shelves, they eat through any wood. And again, it was a huge problem because it meant you either had to bomb the whole house, killing millions of them, or you left it and then the house would fall in on you. Because literally, you have wooden beams holding up the roof, and they go straight through the beam, you know? So what to do? So, you know, again, I was doing Tonglen for them. The termites completely stopped. So, there's many experiences like this, but they're spiritual experiences. If you say, well, you know, scientifically, what would you say about this? There's no scientific reasoning behind this at all. But if you look at the karmic reasoning, that you've made some connection with them in the past, beginningless time, countless lives, you've made some sort of connection, and they're back. They're saying, you owe me something. Now, give me, you know. Then you have to satisfy them in some way. And you have to do it with a joyful mind, with patience, with tolerance, with generosity, etc. What we were talking about yesterday. Okay?
Thank you.
So that was a good question to ask, because it means we also went over some of yesterday too. But our attitude, we keep thinking about what's our new attitude? How can we change? So if you see one ant, you go, you know, like this, you haven't got bodhicitta. One mosquito, and you go, you haven't got bodhicitta. You go back to your program before, which was self-cherishing. What about me? You know, I don't want this, like this. I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this. This is the self-cherishing mind. Very easily we can find it. But with difficulty we're going to change it. It's hard. You have to have that motivation every morning when you wake up, bodhicitta. And what does bodhicitta mean? I leave it at the Sanskrit word because I think you don't understand the Sanskrit word. Do you? You don't understand it. It's better not to understand it. It's better that you build up a picture around the word bodhicitta than to translate it into English or German, because then you'll limit yourself. Bodhicitta in Tibetan is about 15 words. The English language is too limited to translate Dharma. So it's better for something like bodhicitta, that you think a vast mind, incorporating all sentient beings, wanting to have happiness for all sentient beings, wanting compassion for all sentient beings. You can go on and on and on like that, then you build up a big picture around bodhicitta. But if you just translate it into one word, then it loses the meaning. Yeah? So even for the snails, I have compassion. Even for the ants, I have compassion. For the human beings, I have compassion. Same. You know, the compassion is the same. But the potential of human beings to become Buddha is more. We have more potential. But they also have potential, right, to become Buddha. Is it okay? Try the letter first. The letter's the easiest. I told this to a course at Copan. One girl laughed, oh, you know, oh, the letter. You know, he's completely like that. So I said, well, try it, because she had a spider in her room, in the dormitory, and she said, I can't sleep in this dormitory with this spider. With the long legs, you know, the daddy long legs. I said, so what do you think? It's going to jump on you in the night and it's going to get you, and, you know, these sort of spiders, they're completely harmless. You come to Australia, we have spiders, you know, tiny ones, they'll kill you like that. Not like this. This is nothing with these long legs, you know, like Tina Turner. You know, long legs. So, the Tina Turner spider is up in the corner and she can't sleep. So the first night in Copan, lights are on all night, she's lying there, you know, sort of awake, staring at this spider. So she told me the next day, I'm exhausted. I can't spend every night staring at that spider. I said, try the letter. Because she didn't know about Tom Lennon or about anything else. She was new. So she wrote the letter. Dear spider, look, I'm really terrified, blah, 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 blah. She told her whole story. She got brave enough to stand on a chair and sort of slap it on the wall next to the spider. And while she was up there, she noticed there's also babies. So there's not just the spider, but many babies. And oh no, it's going to get worse. You know, there's babies. By that evening, when she went back to the dormitory, they'd gone. Spider was gone, babies were gone, they'd all left. She became a disciple. So, I don't know if it works every time, I doubt it, but you try things, you know, because our instinct might be, you know, oh well, that solved the problem, didn't it? Or a newspaper, that solved the problem, didn't it? But actually it didn't solve the problem, because we make more problems, we make karmic problems, and we change our attitude, you know, from a nice attitude, a loving attitude, to a more harmful attitude. So we have to ask ourselves, what do we want? Spiritually, what do we want? Do we want to be nice people, kind people, compassionate people, or do we want to be harmful people? And you can't be both. You know, the opposite of compassion is anger and hatred. So which do you want? Compassion, anger, hatred. But when we're angry and we have hatred, we don't even think about compassion. That's how it's the antidote. It's the exact opposite, right? When you have compassion, then you're not even thinking about anger and hatred. So the more you're thinking about the benefit of sentient beings, the more you're thinking, I've got this practice, I know about medicine Buddha, I can do that for them. The more you're thinking like that, the more you're encouraging your mind to go in the direction of bodhicitta. Great compassion, great love. Not just family, friends, but all beings. This is problematic, for sure, because you have to live in the world, right? And because we live in the world, we can't live with no harm, we have to live with the least harm. So I'm not setting you up for failure, I'm saying, you know, be aware that you can't always solve the problem. You want to, you know, with the ants, the cockroaches, the termites, you can't always solve the problem in the least harmful way. But you do your best. At least that keeps your good heart. You can add another definition to bodhicitta, having a good heart rather than a bad heart. Any other questions? Okay. The last bit, emptiness. What can I say? emptiness is probably not a good word, because if you think of my cup, which has some tea, and if you think emptiness means there is no tea in the cup, that's not the meaning of emptiness. So the Sanskrit word is shunyata. Shunyata. S-H-U-N. Shunyata. Y-A-T-A. Shunyata. And it means empty of something. It doesn't mean empty. It means empty of something. What's it empty of? So every time you hear this word empty, or shunyata, you have to ask yourself, empty of what? That's what it means. It means empty of something. The something is what you keep adding to the object. You keep adding it. So we want to take it away. What are we adding? Inherent existence. So do you understand inherent?
No.
Must be somebody who doesn't. Somebody doesn't. I hear wow. Who said wow? Yo. Somebody said something. So if you don't understand inherent, it means something it's an object that could exist without causes and conditions. An object, or a person can also be an object. So anything that could exist without causes and conditions. Can you think of something that could exist without causes and conditions? So if you think about the clock, it's got hands, it's got a face, it's got the works. You know, when you take it all apart, and I guess we have to do that in order for this experiment to work. One screwdriver, Stefan, and we're going to take all this apart, and then for sure I can put it back together, don't worry. But we would take it apart mentally, because you think clock exists. You keep reacting to clock in the end as if it wasn't created, but just as if it exists. So this is something very subtle. It's very refined. It's not on a gross level. So in the beginning, when we hear about emptiness, I think in some way we think, oh yeah, you know, I get it. I can get that. But actually you're getting it on the gross level, and you need to go deeper and deeper and deeper into what's the meaning of emptiness. This mala, we call it a mala or rosary, then it's a dependent arising. It depends upon the string, it depends upon 108 beads, and then put together in this particular way, you can put the label mala, M-A-L-A, mala is Tibetan, or rosary, which we use for counting mantra. If this breaks, this string breaks, which it happens with these things, especially if you have a crystal mala, they break and they go pum, and the crystal beads take off. I've had this happen so many times in Bodh Gaya at the stupa that just poof, they disappear. So, where's your mala when it breaks? You had a mala before, but now where's your mala when it's in separate pieces of beads, a string? Now can you find mala, rosary? Can you find it? You can see the parts. And when the parts are put together in the right way, you can put the correct label, rosary, mala, because it functions in the right way. You know, I can do this. This is a function of a mala, right? So I can't call this, what can't I call it? A flower, right? I can't call this a flower. If I call this a mala and I call this a flower, then there's a confusion. Right? It's the wrong label on the wrong base. So you have to have the correct label on the correct base. So, flower, it's okay. Mala, it's okay. We're not arguing about that, are we? We say, that's fine. This is a mala. This is a flower. But you're looking for something that your mind has added extra to the situation. And it's very subtle. It appears to you, when you keep reacting to it, as if the object is giving you information. I am a mala. It's as if it's speaking to you. I'm a mala. I'm a friend. I'm an enemy. I'm a neutral person. The information appears to be coming to you from the side of the object, not from your mind. But from the Buddhist perspective, the label is coming from your mind, and the way you interact with the object and the label is up to your experience from the past into the present, your karma, and your delusion. Delusion means afflictive emotion. Any negative emotions we've had in the past will affect our mind in a negative way. Any positive emotions we've had in the past will affect our mind in a positive way. So when you see the ant, then you can think friend, enemy, stranger. 3 possibilities. The ant is a valid base for putting the label ant. Is the ant a valid base for putting the label enemy? Is it a valid base for the label enemy? From its side, from the ant's side, is the ant saying to you, I'm an enemy, kill me, I'm going to harm you, I'm your enemy? Is it saying like that? Or is your mind saying, enemy, danger, danger? Which way is the information coming? It's coming from this way, right? Towards the ant, not from the ant. So once you start analysing this, you start understanding that what you're doing is you're adding flavour, you're adding something extra to the situation. Something that wasn't there before. So it's a really good thing to talk about. You know, you have this snail in the garden and you have your vegetables. So if I said to you, well, which do you want to take care of? Which do you want to protect? The vegetable or the snail? You choose the vegetable, I think. You're growing the vegetable, right? So vegetable, food, sustenance, it's going to take care of me. And if I get rid of the ant, then I'm going to be able to do that. So we have this slug or snail, and we see it as the enemy of the vegetable. Therefore, my enemy, because it's my vegetable, and it's going to harm my vegetable, so therefore it's my enemy. So I see the slug or snail, and I go, I must get rid of it, because if I don't, then it's going to eat my vegetables. Where's the information coming from? Is it coming from my mind? Did my mind decide enemy? Or did the snail slug decide it was the enemy? Right? This is really good to think about. Because it's quite clear in this way. It's less clear with people. That when you look at people in this room, very quickly your mind will be saying, like, dislike, don't care, like, dislike, don't care. Very quickly. And if you're looking for a relationship, you know, if you're in a group of people, if you're looking for a relationship, very quickly you can look around and think, possible, possible. You know, just like that. That one, not sure, but I'll check it out. Yeah, that one definitely. That one definitely. But that one, we need to talk. Over lunch, I think I'll check that one out, and that one and that one. So if you're looking for a relationship, very quickly, within split seconds, we can be making decisions. Possible relationship, you haven't even talked to them, you don't know them, the only information you have is their clothing, their colour of their face, their skin, the shape of their body, that's all you know, and yet you're making lifelong decisions based on that. Isn't this amazing? Split second. Possible, possible, possible. And if you think this doesn't happen, you need to come on one of these courses where it's in silence and people start falling in love and all sorts of stuff's going on. They never talk, and at the end of the course they discover that the person that they thought they were falling in love with isn't the person that they thought. Because it's all happening in the mind. Right? This shows you the power of the mind to impute, to project onto the base, the object, the person, friend or possible friend. Neutral, I don't really care. Possible enemy or enemy. And people say, I don't have an enemy. But I have people I don't like. So maybe the word enemy is too strong, but people I don't like, animals I don't like, some people like dogs, they don't like cats. Or they like cats, they don't like dogs. Or they like birds and they don't like cats, etc., etc., etc. So you can go into all these preferences that we have. Where are the preferences coming from? Karma and delusion. And projecting onto the base. It's just an ant. It's just a slug or a snail. It's just a human being. But we're adding a flavour to it. And why are we doing that? Because in the past we had to protect ourselves. 1,000,000 years ago, this was very important. It was then, split second, dinosaur that's not a vegetarian. You know? And I'm lunch. So I should start running. This is what our system's set up for. You know, we still have the same system today. So these days, we look at somebody and our reaction is so strong because we're programmed for strength of reactions, whether it's desire attachment or whether it's hatred, aversion, anger. We're programmed for these strong emotions to arise because we had to do something, and we had to do it very quickly. But now we need to learn to slow down a little bit and put wisdom in that decision. Instead of ignorance, Buddhism says the basis of our decisions is ignorance, not understanding how things exist. Not understanding how things exist. We think that things are inherently enemy, inherently bad, from its side. Not from my side, not from my mind, but from its side. The enemy is saying, giving me information, I am your enemy, I am your enemy. But Buddha said that's not true at all. It's coming from your mind. So this is great news, because you don't have to go around fixing everybody and everything. What you have to do is fix your mind. Fix the way that you are thinking. Does this make sense to you? You understand? I know it's difficult, but you have to start thinking of all the problems and the trouble that self-cherishing has made for you from beginningless time. Why are we not enlightened right now? Why are we not Buddhas? Why are we not floating on lotuses? Why? Because from beginningless time we've had problems, and we've reacted to our problems with ignorance, sometimes anger, sometimes aversion, sometimes hatred, jealousy. 84,000 negative emotions that Buddha found. We have the range. And we've used them. And when we use them, we harm others. So now we're here saying, I want to learn something about medicine Buddha because then maybe I can help myself, I can help others. But you've also got to recognize that there is ignorance in there. There are these negative emotions in there, and sometimes they're going to arise. So doing the medicine Buddha practice is to give you more energy and power to be able to subdue these disturbing minds, to not let them take over, not let them be the boss. Do you want disturbing emotions to be the boss, to be the driver? It's dangerous, right? You've got this disturbing emotion as the driver of your vehicle, and you're allowing it to do whatever it wants. So I think the message of Buddhism is, you can be the person that you want to be, but you need to make effort in order to go in the right direction, to be able to subdue these disturbing emotions. So emptiness is one of the keys, it's one of the ways of reducing the disturbing emotion. So that when you look at the ant, you can question yourself, does it exist the way I think? Does it exist the way I think? Because if you're thinking enemy, right, you're putting the label enemy, and if you ask yourself, does it exist the way I think? I'm thinking it's the enemy. Is it the enemy? Or is it an opportunity to save lives? Is it an opportunity to take care of it, to nurture it, to look after it, the way you would want to be nurtured and looked after? The person that you look at and you think, I don't like that person, because whatever it is, you know, their hair, their clothes or whatever, I don't like that person. If you ask yourself immediately, do they exist the way I think? Then you start to understand it's your thinking that's making the suffering. Your thinking is making the problem, not the person. Not them, but the way you're thinking of them. So then, subduing those negative thoughts which come from ignorance is wisdom, that we're going to be able to think of others in a more constructive way, a more compassionate way, a more loving way. We're going to be able to change. But we're not going to be able to change if we don't challenge this negative way of thinking. So I think one way of starting is this challenge to yourself. Does it exist the way I think? Starts to give you the key to the way you're thinking, because you start to understand it's my mind that's doing all this projecting. And when it projects, I don't like, I don't want, stay away from me, you know, doing that, then it's not that being out there that's doing this to me. I'm doing this to myself. And when we're in a very suffering state of mind, this happens more and more and more. When we're very sick, this can happen more and more. When we're very tired, when we're in a difficult situation, we can have this feeling, sort of stay away from me, you know. I don't want to know about anybody. And when we're in a good state of mind, then we don't mind so much. Things change. So does that help? Do you understand what I'm talking about? I haven't talked about the full implications of emptiness, but I think where you need to start is by challenging the ignorance that's coming up into your mind. The ignorance promotes anger, hatred, desire. I want, I want, I want, and it's never enough. Ignorance promotes hatred. I don't want, I don't want, I don't want, and keep it away. And the third one really is ignorance. I don't care. I really don't care. Who are you? I don't care. Who are you? I don't care. It's like we have no connection, so I don't care. I call this the whatever category. Whatever. Young people now, they say whatever. You know, the mother says, what do you want for dinner? Whatever. Do you want to go to a movie? Whatever. You know, it's like not engaging. Whatever, whatever, whatever. I don't know if it's so prevalent in Europe, but in many countries around the world now, teenagers, they're getting into whatever. Not engaging, not thinking about things. That's ignorance. Because from beginningless time, countless rebirths, this has been your mother. This has been your father, your brother, your sister. You have had a karmic connection. But we can't remember the karmic connection. So how are we going to behave towards them in this life? Are we just going to say, oh, who cares, doesn't matter? Or are we going to engage with them on a positive level? It's all up to your mind, which you want to do. Of course, engaging with them in a positive way takes more energy. You need more stamina to be able to do this. And that's why Medicine Buddha's there. That will help you to resolve your issues, your health issues, or your energy issues, or whatever. So, Medicine Buddha can help you, but help you to do what? If it's not helping you to have renunciation, bodhicitta and emptiness, then it's helping you to have more knickknacks, more money, more job, more this, more this. So we're using medicine Buddha in a very worldly way. Not in a special spiritual way, but we're bringing it down to a worldly way. So if you're doing that with medicine Buddha, then what's the point? No benefit, only a worldly benefit. We should be using medicine Buddha for spiritual purposes. So if you need to resolve your job issues, why should you resolve them? In order to be of more benefit to more beings. To have more resources, in order to be of more benefit to more beings. Then this is compassion. But if you use medicine Buddha to go back to self-cherishing, what about me? Me, 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 me. Then the practice itself becomes self-cherishing. You understand? So we've got to be very careful with these practices because they're very powerful. Don't take them back to the normal level of me, 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 me. Keep them extraordinary. Keep them special. Why are you doing it? Because you want to help more beings. What do you want to do? I want to liberate more beings from their suffering. I don't want them to have 1 minute's more suffering. Not even 1 second more suffering. I want to do something now. To do something now, you're using medicine Buddha to give you that power and that energy to be able to do it. But if you just want medicine Buddha for a bit more money for yourself, a bit more relationship or a bit more whatever, it becomes a worldly practice. Okay, any questions? It's too easy, isn't it? What do you think, Walter? Too easy, eh? No confusion? Okay. I was going to read something to you yesterday. I've got this book which I borrowed from Andrea. So this is called The Teachings from the Medicine Buddha Retreat. It's, I think, the same initiation that Rinpoche will be giving here. And this was given in Land of the Medicine Buddha in the early 2000s. It's from Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archive. Do you have it?
I think so.
2001. There's a lot of information in it. A lot. So, there's the discourse before Medicine Buddha preparation. And Rinpoche says the solution is Lam Rim. If you're new, Lam Rim means the stages of the path to enlightenment. So it's all the teachings of Buddha in Tibetan Buddhism, particularly, that is in a particular order. It's not that we teach in any order, but we teach in a particular order. And this was started by Lama Atisha when he went to Tibet. Then he devised this program to make it easy for Tibetans to understand Buddhism. Up until that time, we're talking about the 10th century, up until that time there was no order to Buddhist teachings. We had 84,000 teachings for 84,000 negative states of mind. Can you imagine 84,000? And there's no order. So Buddha would go to a village, give a teaching, go to another village, give a teaching, people would memorize the teaching, but there was no order to the teaching. So what you needed was a teacher to be able to help you. You would go to a teacher and say, you know, I'm having problems with blah, 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 and then the teacher, knowing these 84,000 teachings, would then give you the right advice. Very difficult. So when Atisha, this great Lama, went to Tibet, the king said to him, we really need something simple, not the most complicated thing, not big initiations, but what we need for the Tibetan people is something simple that teaches them the whole path. And Atisha said, oh, after having come by yak, walking, whatever, months to get to the capital of Tibet from India, what Atisha realized was he's asking for something that doesn't exist. Not it's empty, but it's really empty. It doesn't exist at all, right? So now what am I going to do? So Tisha went away and he thought, well, I'm going to have to write something. This is the only way. And there was a big danger of writing something, because if you wrote it, it had to be sent back to India, it had to be evaluated by the great scholars, and then they could send it back to you and say, rubbish. You know, this is a load of rubbish, we're not interested. And so, of course, you would get a lot of criticism. And a teacher was known as the highest teacher in India at that time. So he wrote a text in verse form called Lamp on the Path to Enlightenment, and he sent it back to India, and they read it and they said, wow, 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 this is incredible. Stay in Tibet, don't come back. So before that they were saying come back, come back. Now they said don't come back. Because the Tibetans need karmically something like this, it has been produced, it's amazing, even for India and the greatest scholars, it's amazing, but what we need is a commentary. So stay where you are, give us a commentary. Then this became known as Lam Rim. Lam Rim means, in Tibetan, in English, it means stages of the path, steps or stages on the path to enlightenment. So, I'm going to read a little bit from here. The solution is Lam Rim. Rinpoche says, the reason we have to get out of samsara, so samsara is this birth, death, rebirth, which is caused by karma and delusion. Remember, delusion means afflictive states of mind, negative emotions. Karma and delusion is what propels us to our next rebirth, to our next one, to our next one. And we talk about this as a wheel going around. I don't know if you have a wheel anywhere.
Outside.
Where is it?
Next to the door, outside.
Next to the door outside. So if you're interested, you can look at this wheel, and in each life we're reborn in different situations. Sometimes happier, sometimes more unhappy. So this is what we call samsara. I often joke and say Sam and Sarah. Sam and Sarah got together and made samsara. The reason we have to get out of samsara is that other sentient beings are suffering in samsara, and we need to help them, to liberate them from the oceans of samsaric suffering. So the analogy is, your mother can't swim, she's in the ocean or she's in the river or in the lake, she's drowning, you're standing on the side of the river or the ocean, wherever it is, you're looking at your mother, she's screaming, saying, help me, but you can't swim. What are you going to do? There's no rope, you can't swim. If you jump in, she's going to die and you're going to die. So what are you going to do? This is our present situation. Countless beings are in the oceans of samsaric suffering, so there's countless beings in that suffering situation. What are you going to do? If you're in the same situation as them, what can you do? You're standing on the side of the river saying, what can I do? We need to empower ourselves. We need to have more skills, more ability to be able to help others. True?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, my dear. She spoke on behalf of all of you. That was a loud true. Of course, that's what we normally talk about and what we're supposed to think, particularly after having met Mahayana Buddhism. So this is Mahayana Buddhism. You hear a lot about bodhicitta, you hear a lot about liberating others, taking care of others, and then maybe you start hearing inside, but what about me? You know, I came here for me, not for every other sentient being. So we're not leaving you out, you're included in all sentient beings. Right? When we say all sentient beings need to be liberated, you're one of them. So we're not saying specifically you and all sentient beings, but it's implicit in the way it's said, you are included in all sentient beings. Of course we want to liberate you. Of course we want to help you. Of course we want you to have self-love and self-compassion, Because if you don't have it, how are you going to have it for anybody else? If you hate yourself, right, think of this. You hate yourself. You look in the mirror and say, oh, dreadful. You know, I don't like you. I don't like the way you're behaving. So you're quite angry and hateful towards yourself. How are you going to have compassion to others? Is it possible? You could pretend. Good morning. You know, like you work in McDonald's or something. Good morning, have a nice day. You know, but you know it's not real, right? So you're angry towards yourself and you have to develop compassion towards others. Is it possible? I think it's impossible. So first you need to have self-love, self-compassion, but there's got to be a limit on it. Because if you don't put a limit on it, the popcorn will never end. The chocolate will never end. The wine will never end. The movies will never end. Right? Because you'll always be giving me, and then not thinking I'm doing this in order to help them, just I'm doing it for me. Fulfilling the self-cherishing. So the motivation in Mahayana is, I take care of myself in order to benefit others. The motivation is different. I take care of myself, I'm loving myself, I'm compassionate towards myself in order to be of benefit to others. So this is Mahayana Buddhism. Maha means great. Yana means path. So it means the great path incorporating every sentient being. But there is now an even stronger reason that we have to practice Dharma and do this retreat. What is it? We can see the reason on the world news these days. This is just after 9/11, I think. It's 2001. 2001 was 9/11, wasn't it? And Rinpoche wrote a letter, it's in the back, to President Bush, and said, please don't attack. We can see the reason on the world news. Especially because of the present situation, we have even stronger reasons to practice Dharma. Doing retreat is the only way, it's the real solution. But not just doing any retreat, not just doing a retreat, where we watch our breath or our belly moving in and out, or where we walk and think I'm walking, or where we think I'm breathing, I'm touching, I'm eating, I'm sleeping, I'm dreaming. This is not a retreat where we just have the awareness. I'm stealing, I'm killing. Anyway, I'm joking about this, he says. He jokes a lot. I don't know if on the screen it'll say joking. But he jokes a lot. So you have to get the jokes. The last joke I heard from him was, you need to keep a diary. And he said, I don't mean diarrhea. I'm saying, this was in Nepal, where many people are probably already suffering. I'm not saying diarrhea, I'm saying diary. Because he said, many people don't understand my English, so I'm not saying diarrhea. And he went on and on about this diarrhea thing. So, he makes jokes like this, you know, just to make sure that you're really getting it. Here it's a retreat on Lamrim, on tantric deity practice based on Lamrim. This is the most important retreat. The only way you can do deity practice, Medicine Buddha is a deity practice. The only way you can do deity practice perfectly, the only way you can make it a pure, real retreat is by practicing Lamrim. This is Lamrim, what I've been talking about. It's only then that a deity retreat becomes pure and correct. Otherwise, without Lamrim, it doesn't even become Dharma. The very first thing is to make the retreat become Dharma. Without Lamrim, it's difficult for meditation on a deity to become even Dharma. So there's no doubt that it won't become a cause to achieve liberation or enlightenment. There's no way for that to happen. The solution is Lamrim. If you don't want to suffer, and we don't want others to suffer, the ultimate solution is Lamrim, the foundation of which is the Four Noble Truths. Of course, bodhicitta is the most precious thing we can meditate on in our life. After meeting Tibetan Mahayana Buddhism, we have this most precious opportunity to meditate on bodhicitta. As Shantideva mentions in the first chapter of A Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, which praises bodhicitta, after we have taken this impure body, it becomes the priceless, holy body of the victorious one, or Buddha. Think about that. We've taken this impure body, because this body is created with karma and delusion, karma afflictive emotions. And yet, this body is the basis for us to becoming liberated and enlightened, to become a Buddha. So this impure body becomes the basis to become a pure body, pure speech, pure mind. So on the basis of this human body, we can achieve incredible things. This is what he's saying. How? Because of bodhicitta. Without bodhicitta, we're not even moving in the direction of enlightenment. With worldly thoughts, we're not even moving in the direction of enlightenment. Because worldly thoughts are, I want a relationship, I want a job, I want money, I want this, I want this. Self-cherishing, it's not even Dharma. So I'm explaining this to you because if you go to Rinpoche's teaching, very much he then makes this clear, that the motivation for doing this practice must be the correct motivation. We've taken a body that is only suffering in nature. It's like a garbage can or a septic tank. As Nagarjuna explains in a letter to a friend, it's the container of 32 impurities. All the dirty things that come out from the lower and the upper doors are regarded as things to throw away. That shows that the body is suffering in nature and filled with impurities. Before we eat food, it's clean. But after it goes into our body, it gets dirty, and nobody wants to eat what comes out. It's this body that makes clean food dirty. There's a famous Lama called Kunu Lama, who wrote this book on bodhicitta. He said, you eat clean food, then you vomit. Then you can't give the vomit to anybody and say, here you are, eat. Nobody would be interested. That proves that what's inside the body is impure rather than pure. It's really interesting to think about, that you put all this delicious food in, and what comes out is not very pleasant. And yet, we keep thinking this body as very special. We take care of it, we look after it, we give it special food, special drinks. We should look after it, but not to the extreme. Don't be too extreme about it, and don't go to the opposite end where you're starving it to death. The middle way, do the middle path, look after it, but not to the exclusion of everything else. So this is what the message is. Take care of it, but not extremely. After having taken such a suffering body, you can transform it into the Vajra holy body of a Buddha, which is totally free from suffering. This is priceless. What enables you to achieve this complete transformation is the Lamrim, especially bodhicitta. That's why Shantideva emphasizes practicing bodhicitta. It's not just that you think about bodhicitta from time to time. You must realize bodhicitta and then stabilize that realization. So that's what I wanted to say about Lamrim. And then it goes on about President Bush. Then, Medicine Buddha preparation. To be qualified to do Medicine Buddha practice, including generating yourself as Medicine Buddha, you need a preliminary of having received a great initiation of Medicine Buddha. Rinpoche requested Chodron Rinpoche to give it. Chodron Rinpoche gave the initiation. Lama Zopa Rinpoche did the retreat, so therefore he can give the initiation. Medicine Buddha belongs to Action Tantra. There's 4 classes of Tantra. This belongs to Action Tantra, of which there are 3 types: the Lotus race, the Tathagata race, and the Vajra race. 1000 Amchen Rezik, as in the Nungne practice, 4 Amchen Rezik belong to the Lotus race. Mitrukpa belongs to the Vajra race. Here, Medicine Buddha belongs to the Tathagata race. So Action Tantra deities belong to the Lotus, Vajra or Tathagata. Don't worry about that too much. To do a great initiation, you need preparation. Rinpoche did the retreat. Then he's been trying to spread knowledge of the benefits of Medicine Buddha to inspire people to do the practice, which was very simple. The name mantra is very easy to recite, but even it has benefits like the sky. Rinpoche often talks about benefits like the sky, it means it's limitless. It has unbelievable power to purify negative karma and save beings from the lower realms. For quite a number of years I've been trying to inspire people to do this practice and giving out pictures of Medicine Buddha. I feel very fortunate and very happy to be able to help many sentient beings to practice Medicine Buddha. And then he goes on to talk about emptiness. So Rinpoche from his side is really promoting Medicine Buddha. He feels it's very important in this degenerate time to do Medicine Buddha practice, and you can only do Medicine Buddha practice on the basis of this. If you do Medicine Buddha practice without thinking about what we've discussed this morning, it can become the cause of success, but only worldly success. Is that all you want? You don't want any more success than that? Do you want spiritual success? Do you want bodhicitta? Do you want enlightenment? This is the longer view, right? The shorter view is that maybe we have court cases or family problems or money problems, whatever. We're not saying deny those and don't think they exist. Of course you can use Medicine Buddha for that, but also take into consideration wanting to benefit all sentient beings, wanting to help them with their problems, wanting to have enlightenment, the longer term view. So both views, short term, long term. After the break, then I'm going to start explaining the 7 Medicine Buddha names and the value of each name, the promises that each of those Medicine Buddhas made, and then the mantra. I have to explain the meaning of the mantra, so we should be able to do that and finish that, I hope, by lunchtime. And then this afternoon we can start looking at the meditational practice and how you can do this practice so that you're able to do it at home. There is a practice that you do once a month here, Medicine Buddha. The puja is done here once a month, but also I want to encourage you to be able to do it at home, to know how to do the practice. So this morning the names, the mantra. This afternoon we start explaining the sadhana, the way to do the meditation. And if we finish that today, then it means tomorrow morning we can actually do the practice together. And then you'll see how to do it and we can record it. And so then if you want to follow along, you can also have a recording of it. Okay? Any questions? Any problems? Any disturbed mind? Tell me now. Ant lady.
We spoke about the samsara, that we have a lot of lives.
Mm.
Why we lose this knowledge of our previous lives? Is there something written?
Why?
Why we lose the knowledge?
Lose the knowledge.
Yes.
Well, I think birth is very painful. There's one explanation. You know, when you take rebirth as a human, birth is very painful. And so just the pain of birth tends to wipe out a lot of the memory. However, the lamas can remember the death time, the in-between time, and then the rebirth time, the coming back time. They can remember the whole thing. I can remember listening to Lama Zopa 31 years ago. I heard him describe birth, and I really felt he was there. He was describing his birth. And he said, it's like 2 rocks. This is the mother's womb. There's 2 rocks, and you're being squeezed out between these 2 rocks, because you know the head has to collapse to get out, and then it reforms. So when he was describing, I really felt he was talking from his personal experience. But for us, we can't remember. So you need concentration, at least the 5th level of 9 levels of concentration. You need at least the 5th level of concentration, being able to hold your mind on one object. If you can't even remember yesterday's lunch, how can you remember your rebirth? You know? I mean, it's unrealistic, isn't it? So if I say, well, what did you eat yesterday for lunch? Was it a sandwich? Was it this? You know? I mean, time just seems to pass so quickly and so easily, and we don't have such a strong memory of things that happen. But if you're really a Dharma practitioner, you start to develop control over your mind. Then at the time of death, you're controlling your death. It's not controlling you. You're not being thrown around mentally all over the place. You're able to control your mind, particularly the situation of clear light, where you hold your mind on the clear light. And this is the opportunity to become enlightened in this lifetime, at the death time. But at least to improve your spiritual practice, to become a bodhisattva. And then you take rebirth out of compassion and wisdom instead of karma and delusion. So your purpose in coming back is for others rather than for you. So all these practices change your whole view, so that at the time of death you're much better off. Your situation is much better. Then coming back, the situation of others is much better, because you're not there for yourself, you're there for them. And you're going to have benefits and resources to be able to help them. You understand? When I was with Lama Osel, he remembered his past until about the age of 6. Then they say, around the age of 6, Lamas say, no, I don't remember anymore. This is very common amongst the Tibetan Lamas. About the age of 6, they stop remembering. Up until the age of 6, they remember their previous disciples and the previous situations they were in. So they don't want to live in the past. Lama Osel wasn't Lama Yeshe. He's the continuation of Lama Yeshe, but he's not Lama Yeshe. So he doesn't want you behaving towards him as Lama Yeshe. He wants to be Lama Osel. He's carrying all the memories and all the actions of Lama Yeshe and previous rebirths. It's being carried into this present continuum. But this present continuum has a different body. The mind is the same. The continuum is the same. But the body's changed. So the country's changed. The body's changed. How he wants to behave has changed. And this is appropriate for the changing world. You know, Lama Yeshe would never have had a little goatee beard and straggly hair and drums, you know. But young people nowadays really relate to Lama Osel because he looks like that, you know. In 10 years' time, maybe it's inappropriate for him then. And so he's going to change his look again. But he's going to keep changing his looks in order to connect, in order to benefit others. So I think this is the reason the Lamas come back, the reason why they're here. But they're not here to keep talking about the past and who they were before. And same with us, if we really go to all these clairvoyants and, you know, we keep, who was I, who was I? Inevitably they tell you, you were something amazing. You know, Mary Queen of Scots or Henry Tudor or, you know, something. And you think, wow, you know, amazing. But then the ego can become very big, isn't it? What difference does it make? For sure we've been human in the past. For sure we've been dogs, ants, slugs, all sorts of beings. Just we're very fortunate in this life that we're human and to use it for something really important, really special, rather than just wasting time, time passing. Don't use it for that, use it for something special. Yeah? Well, talking about something special, people, what is it now? Tea break. Without tea break, where would we be? So, there's a tea break, and I think half an hour, so we'll ring a gong 5 minutes before, so that you get time to come back. Thank you.